Welcome back, fight fans. We're back after a fairly long break, actually. Haven't been here the last 3 Wednesdays, I believe. But look at this. We've got our background. I was going to, studio, lol. We've got our background back. We're looking good. And we are going to not only have this new background, but we're also going to just change how we do pretty much everything on here. I've been testing out some new betting styles and just systems in general, I guess, while I've been on that sabbatical, let's say. And it's been going pretty well. Cashed in, not just on the UFC cards. I did fuck up one of the UFC cards, I'll admit. The first one a few weeks ago, it was a bit of a learning curve for sure. But since then, the systems have been going well. I've been betting on every single MMA card I can find. We're talking about Fame MMA, LFA, Bellator, PFL hasn't been on since. You name it, I've been betting on it. KSW, there were 2 LFA cards. I mean, I could go on and on. I've bet on, I think, like 15 or 20 different promotions, at least 10 for sure, in the last few weeks. So I've been testing it out. It's been going pretty well. So we're going to keep rolling with that system. And I'm going to go through that today. I'm not going to go through the ins and outs of the system necessarily, but I think you'll fairly quickly understand. Well, I guess it would be kind of going through the system. This is definitely going to be one of those episodes where it's like, okay, it's the first time I'm doing this on the air here. I don't know how we're going to be going through things. I don't know. I'm sure it's going to be a little clunky and it's not going to be all that smooth, but we're going to get there and we're going to get some good bets in. Basically, the crux of the entire thing is that I will be going through not just the main card, I will be going through every single fight on the card, but we're not going to be going super in depth on any of those matchups. Instead, what we're going to be doing, excuse me, is basically the whole core of the system, let's say, is if I think it's really obvious that somebody is going to win, I put them in parlays. And if I'm not sure, if it's 60-40, 50-50, somewhere around there where it's like, I could really see either guy winning here, always bet the underdog. And that is what I've been doing for the last few weeks. And let me tell you, it has definitely been working. It definitely has been working. And that's about it for all the basic cards anyway. That's about it. I go a little bit farther with the UFC cards. Instead of just betting on that, just betting that way, I also do a similar thing with the over-unders. If it's like, okay, they always get finishes, but I see a couple of decisions on there. Usually that means the under 2.5 is favored. I gotta go with the over. And again, to a lot of people, that does seem counterintuitive, and even to myself, sometimes that seems counterintuitive because it's like, I just don't see how this goes the whole way. Trust me when I say it really does work out because of the plus money, because it's plus money. You end up actually winning more if you bet on the thing that you don't think is gonna happen. Perfect example of that. Like I said, I've been betting the last few cards. Anthony Smith, Johnny Walker. I noticed, of course, heavily favored to be under 2.5. But guess what? I knew how durable both of these guys are, but also I noticed they have a decent amount of decisions. Johnny Walker has actually a few decisions in there. Smith has some decent decisions, but it's also because he's so tough. They're both really tough guys. So to me, that meant why not take a chance on the over? Guess what? I did. Cashed in. It was plus, I think it was plus 200 or at least plus 150, somewhere in that range. That covers a couple of the other bets that maybe a little bit riskier that probably aren't going to cash in. But that's just how it works. The underdogs, the plus money cashes in, it covers a lot of the ones that you miss, and then by the end of it, you end up a couple of units up usually by the end of the card if I make my choices properly. I said I wasn't going to go into the system, but I did anyway, and that's essentially what I've been doing for the last few weeks, and it has been going pretty well. So essentially what I'm going to be doing on this now is I'm going to be going through fight by fight and quickly going through, hey, you know, it's pretty close. Let's go to the underdog. Or I just don't see how this person's going to lose to this person. So we're going to be betting on the favorite, or we're going to be putting them in parlays, or both. And that's how we're going to be doing this from now on. So that means that it's going to be going a lot faster, I would say. And also, that means that next week, instead of focusing on recapping the fights, I'm not going to be doing that at all. Well, I'm not at I won't say I won't be doing it at all, but I might go into like, we were so close on this plus money one cashing in, but like I got robbed last week over and over again. I bet on a Dern finish. Come on. She was so close to getting a finish. I don't even know how many times. I bet on a Hooper finish. That was plus 2 or 300. He almost got the finish. I don't know how many times as well. These are plus 2 or 300 bets. And over and over last week, I think it happened to me at least 3, 4, maybe even 5 times where I bet on the under and it missed by like, it was so close. They were so close to getting a finish, and it does really happen a lot. Even on road to UFC, I was betting the exact same way. Really did well on there as well. Yeah, especially on shows like that, because the underdogs can really, really surprise you. So essentially, that's basically what we're going to be doing from now on. And then I'll also next week, I would say, when we're recapping these cards, let's say, I will then be going into detail, not so much about the fights, a little bit here and there. Like I said, like, oh, that's a bad beat. We were so close to doing that. Like, stuff like that. Or, oh, never any doubt, a little bits of things like that. Or maybe, an interesting fact that I really liked about the fight, or, something like that. I'll add in, but no round by round scoring or anything like that, unless it's like, unless we get some patty level decision where I need to go through it and be like, there's no way that person won. Anyway, instead we'll be focusing on the over, the plus minus of it all, the units. That's what everybody wants to know. How many units are we up? How many units are we down? Obviously, I would love to have some graphics up here, but I don't really have enough time to do that right now. I'm so busy making other things that it would take so much for me to figure out how to get the graphics up here, and then updating, not just getting the graphics up, but updating the graphics as well every single show. I don't know about that. But I will, of course, be saying the numbers, at least my numbers. I mean, because I bet on them usually Friday nights. So my numbers are going to be slightly different from the numbers that you hear on this show. So, when I get those units back, whether it's up or down, we could be, if you're betting right now with me or if you're betting on a Thursday, the numbers are going to be slightly different, but you'll get the general picture of how we're doing. That's for sure. So, without further ado, we will now go through. So, again, we will refine how I'm going to be making these picks. Am I going to be doing them more so ahead of time, writing them down, reading them off of an article, which I might not be doing this week. This article, I'm not sure. Again, super busy doing other things that I was like, I didn't have time to make the article yet. Or even figure out a new format for the article, I should say. That's really more so what I was thinking about. So again, this whole process is probably going to be changing quite a bit over the next month or two, but bear with me. Trust me, the system is going pretty well. So as long as that can keep rolling, we'll just keep refining it week after week, and I'll let you know how it's going with the units. But like I said, for now, we'll go through, and it's going to be a bit clunky because, again, I don't know how I'm going to be looking through this, but we're going to go through it. So right now, I will be looking at Tapology, and I will be making those picks for you. I did go through it already, but I want to go through it and the reasoning behind it with you guys so you know why I'm doing what I'm doing. Because normally I feel like I would probably have it done and in the article, so it would be a little faster and a little easier for me to go through this, but again, don't have that luxury this week. So, we're just going to roll with it and we'll see how it goes. I don't know. This could take half an hour, it could take an hour and a half. I have no idea. We shall see. So, now without further ado, I can't believe I said that and then rambled on for 2 minutes. Now we are going to get started. So, as it stands, we're opening up with Maxim Grishin, Felipe Lins. When I first looked at it, it really did seem pretty even. Again, I'm going to go into the matchup right now. I'm not going to be changing any of my picks for Tapology, but I'll go through the information because I like how it has the weight and everything, their age and everything side by side. So I don't have to flip around through it. So Grishin on one side, Lins on the other side. And honestly, when I saw that matchup, I was kind of like, this could be definitely an underdog one. It's close. It's close on both sides. Maybe we should just bet on the underdog. But I will say, when I was looking through the tape, it fell apart a little bit more on the Lin side. Because if you look, the age is pretty much the same, but Grishin does tend to come into his fights a lot bigger. He was also at heavyweight before. If we look at his recent record, I mean, the last fight was William Knight, so take from that what you will. He did win that. Dustin Jacoby before that, pretty elite. He did lose that one, but honestly, when I was watching it, he had some pretty good moments, even against Dustin Jacoby. Beat Gaji Murat Antagulov before that, and then before that was at heavyweight, Marcin Tybura. He fought Marcin Tybura, and this was only back in 2020. So he was in heavyweight back in 2020. On the Lin side, definitely lighter. He's smaller. Sparked Oven St. Preux OSP in his last one in less than a minute. Marcin Prachnio before that wasn't really all that impressive, though. It was a unanimous decision. And before that, hadn't really fought all that much. Lost to Bozer, lost to Arlovsky. So I just don't think there's a whole lot there on the Lin side, to be honest. So like I said, originally I was going to go with the underdog on this one. But I gotta say, I actually really, really think Grishin should be a much bigger favorite on this one. So we'll go to the odds now. Bet 99, of course. minus 137 for Grishin, Felipe Lins, plus 112. So, I mean, honestly, the numbers are pretty close, but I actually really do think Grishin has a much, much better chance at winning this. So at minus 137, I actually will be taking the small favorite because on a return, minus 137, it's actually not as bad as you think. It's really not too bad. My limit, I've decided from all my experimentation, minus 200 seems to be that diminishing return kind of level. So if you see that, and I really do want people to listen to that. I mean, I should actually probably do a separate video on the system later when I actually fully refine it. But minus 200 seems to be that cutoff where unless you're 100% sure, actually, don't make single bets on anything above minus 200 because it's just not worth it. It's just not. So minus 200 or below, I guess you would say. Is that above or below? I don't know because you're getting a lower number, but it's technically higher odds. I don't know. I don't know how the lingo would work on that one. But if it's below minus 200, so if you're talking minus 150 or plus money, then you make the bet on the single person. If it's above minus 200, so you're talking minus 250, minus 300, that is when I throw them in the parlays and I make multiple parlays out of half a unit usually. So all of these other ones I'm going to say are 1 unit. That is how I've been delegating everything. And again, that might change week to, that might change a month from now. I don't know. I'm just telling you what I've been doing and what's been working okay for me so far. So, with that, all that said, I've got 1 unit on Grishin minus 37, 137, I should say. Then the over under, that's interesting. Minus 158 for the over 2.5, plus 122 for the under 2.5. What's interesting about that is, like I said, I mean, there's lots of finishes on both sides. Linz has a lot of finishes, and he has been finished multiple times. Grishin has, let's see here, multiple finishes. He was at heavyweight and he was getting finishes. I mean, it seems like the under is a no-brainer for that kind of one. For plus money, and this is what I'm saying. Then you put 1 unit plus 122 on the under 2.5, and there you go. That's that fight done. So that is how we will be going through each one. And again, hopefully I get smoother as the card goes on, but that's the pick. Grishin minus 137, 1 unit on him. Under 2.5 plus 122 plus money there, 1 unit on that. Next fight. That's what we're going with. Got to get the pages going. We got Luan Lacerda, Damone Blackshear. This one I remember being definitely more one-sided. Oh, interesting. Oh, that's right. This was an interesting one. This was a very interesting one. I feel like I should be saying the odds first because the odds really dictate how I go about doing these picks, I guess. The odds in this one, plus 114 for Blackshear. Again, like we're figuring this out as we go. Plus 114 for Blackshear, minus 140 for Lacerda. Lacerda on paper looks pretty good. His only loss, at least in the UFC, is Cody Stamann. It was a decision. He looked decent in it. It's Cody Stamann. Cody Stamann's pretty good. He's got a lot of finishes before that, but they're all in the NFA. Wow, all in the LFA. So he doesn't actually have a UFC win on his side. Whereas Blackshear, he was fighting. I remember it was Basharat. Yep, Basharat lost by decision, but we know how good Basharat is. And guess what? I watched the tape. Basharat. Not Basharat. Blackshear was doing really well in that fight. It's definitely Basharat's toughest fight to date. Because as I was watching it, I was like, going into it, I was like, oh, Basharat's a pretty clear favorite in this one. I will definitely be betting on him because even with the tape, he seemed like the clear guy. But honestly, It was close. It was a close fight, and I was worried when I was watching it. I was like, "Man, Blackshear's getting some good looks in." So this really does seem like a toss-up, and I would actually maybe even say Blackshear has a slight edge, and remember what I said. He is the underdog here. So with it being that close, and with me actually even possibly liking the underdog more than the favorite in this one, you gotta go with the underdog, plus 114. 1 unit on Blackshear. That's what we're doing for that. That's the pick. Now we go to the over under 2.5. Of course, it's set at that. I mean, actually, I don't even know if there are any over under 1.5s on this card yet. Oh, there's one later in the card. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, over under 2.5. Um, you know, they've both got a lot of finishes. Like again, I understand where these odds are coming in. That they're favoring the over in this one. They're light guys. They're bantamweight, I believe, right? They're bantamweight. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yes, they're bantamweight. So I understand, I understand favoring that. But guess what? Again, there's a lot of finishes. I mean, I'm looking here in CES, CFFC. He had 4 finishes in a row. Actually, oh, it was 3 out of 4 going into the UFC. Blackshear did. So a lot of finishes on that side. I'm grabbing the wrong. My laptop doesn't even have a mouse, and I'm grabbing the mouse. Wrong one. Luan Lacerda on the other side, lots of finishes, and he has been finished. So again, why not? Why not take a stab? They've both got a lot of finishes, plus 142. It's plus money. Again, 1 unit on that. Let's go. Moving on. Moving on here. We've got, if Bet99 is correct, it is. It is the ladies up next. That's Jinyu Fry or Frey. I'm still not entirely sure which one it is. Jinyu Fry, I think. And Elise Reed on the other side. I will say, I've actually seen on a lot of women's ones, the best strategy to do is you go the underdog and then go with, excuse me, the under. Yeah, it works pretty well actually. What was I gonna say? So Jinyu Fry, now I'm stumbling. We're stumbling here. She's been struggling recently. So lost to Polyana Viana, lost to Demopolis. That's tragic. Split decision though. And then Yoder DePaula wins before that. Not looking entirely that great on those. Elise Reed on the other side. I mean, had a good win there over Melissa Martinez and had actually a pretty good win, I would say, over Corey McKenna as well. I mean, questionable to be honest. Like I kind of thought McKenna was winning that, but the fact that she won it was pretty good. But yeah, it's a tough one because they both use striking, and I think Frey might be a better striker. And one thing I did notice is that Frey tends to be strong. She's fine the entire fight, and she's very difficult to finish. And that's not great for Elise Reed because she really is mostly that striker. She's a karate. I think she's a karate fighter. So heavily leaning on the striking there. Like this is a tough one. So because it's tough, you should probably be going for the underdog again, which in this case is Jinyu Fry plus 110 on this one, and Elise Reed being minus 134. Am I confident enough to put money on a minus 134 Elise Reed? She's 6-3. Jinyu Fry, not great record either, but more experience, better striker over the long run. Over 3 rounds, I should say. So it's close. So what are we doing? We're going with the underdog. 1 unit on the underdog. Jinyu Fry plus 110. That's what we're going with again. The over under, as I mentioned, it really does work well with a lot of women's fights to just go with the under. So probably going to be doing that. And I mean, listen to this. I mean, like her Reed's last fight got finished by Loma Lookboonmee. Of course, she is pretty insanely good, but also got finished by Sam Hughes, though. Also got finished by Eubanks. And she also has finishes outside of the UFC. So there's a lot of finishes on there for Elise Reed on both sides, losing and winning. And on the other side, Jinyu Fry, not as many finishes, I will say, not as many finishes, but she did get knocked out by Viana in the last one. Got also finished by Kay Hansen, of course. All the other ones are decisions, though. But again, is that enough for me not to take it at plus 200? Come on now. Minus 267 for the over 2.5. There is no profit there whatsoever. Like I said, minus 200 is basically the cutoff. And plus 200, when I said all those finishes on the Elise Reed side, plus 200, it's worth a stab again. Plus, so 1 unit on the plus 200 for under 2.5. Like I said, it might sound insane when I'm saying it like this, but hopefully, knock on wood, hopefully after this week is done, after this card is done, I will come back next week, proven the genius that I am, proven that this system does work. We'll see. But as you can see, there's a lot of plus money bets that you make here, and you still get at least about 40% of them in. At least that's usually how about it goes. So when you've got some plus 200s, plus 300s thrown in there, you can really see some good stuff happening. That's for sure. But I understand the hesitance. If you're having a hesitation here, we'll see. Time will tell. But yeah, that's the pick here. So underdog Frey plus 110, under 2.5 plus 200, 1 unit on both, I should say. Well, actually, it is actually each 1 unit on each bet there. Moving on to the next one, we've got Daniel Santos and Johnny Munoz Jr. This is a slightly different one, I will say, because now we're getting into the territory where we're getting into the parlays, which is a little bit harder for me to do live. That's for sure. This is something that I would normally be doing by myself later. So I'm not sure how we're going to handle that with this new setup, but we'll get into it. Daniel Santos to me is just the far and away favorite on this one. He is a madman. If you see this guy fight, he is an absolute lunatic. I love watching him. He's constant pressure, pure violence. I love every second of it. And to be honest, I just don't think Johnny Munoz is going to be able to stand up to that. So with that in mind, oh yeah, he got the finish over Castaneda, who by the way is also fighting later in the card, which is a little strange that he's later in the card, even though Daniel Santos has a win over him. But anyway, so he has the win there, lost to Julio Arce in a decision, and then has a lot of crazy finishes outside of the UFC. Johnny Munoz, you know, he's been looking okay, but he's just not up to that. He doesn't deal well with pressure. He lost, like forward pressure, I should say. I'm not saying pressure of the situation, just striking pressure. He does not deal well with that. Excuse me. So lost to Sholin Yan in his last one, or won actually. Fuck me. He won that one in a decision, but I got to admit, I actually thought he lost because I was watching the tape and he was not really doing all that well against Sholin Yan, and Sholin Yan wasn't really even pressuring him that hard. And you know that Daniel Santos is going to be pressuring you for 15 minutes straight nonstop. So already don't like his odds here. Lost to Tony Gravely, was absolutely destroyed in a little over a minute just before that. So it's really just not looking good all around. So for me, that is a clear pick. That is a clear pick for Daniel Santos. And this is where it gets interesting, of course, because he is above that minus 200 mark, minus 217 right now. On the other side, plus 171 for Munoz. So that means I'm obviously going with Santos, but we are not doing the single bet on this one. Actually, we might be, but that's a different story because I've got another surprise, I guess, at the end. But yes, he will be being put in the parlays for sure. That is parlay guy number one right now, Daniel Santos. Oh, and the over under, of course. The over is set at plus 133, the under minus 172. This is under that minus 200 range. There are a lot. I mean, I could easily see Daniel Santos getting a finish. So I think that's probably what I'll be going for. But this is where it gets a little bit difficult because I tend to take prop bets in this situation. So normally, I don't have odds for this because Bet99 doesn't really do this as much, or at least not until later in the week. Even the site that I also use, Betway, I use that one on top of Bet99. They don't put the odds up for this either until later in the week, but especially for the prelims. But what I will be doing actually later in the week is I will be balancing it out with a Santos finish. So I don't necessarily bet directly on Santos. I bet on a Santos finish to bring the odds down. And then I will bet on the over, which is plus money in this case. So you see what I'm kind of doing? You're balancing out the odds quite a bit there because you've got a plus money in the over 2.5, and the heavy favorite getting a finish is usually also like minus 150, that kind of range. That tends to be what it is. Which means that's a pretty good profit margin because then instead of betting like I was before necessarily, instead of betting on a minus 217 or maybe later in the week minus 250 for Santos, now you're betting on minus 150-ish. You're bringing the odds down quite a bit, and then you're balancing it out with a plus money over in that. So you and if by the way, and I mean, it might not sound like okay, like you're losing money on one bet, you're hedging your bets a little bit. Sometimes, but because he's also in the parlays, as long as even if he doesn't win, actually, I mean, if he loses and it's really actually the only way to lose money on this is if Munoz gets a finish. That's kind of one of the only ways to actually lose money. Otherwise, you either get money or you might be like a third of a unit down or so. That's kind of like worst case scenario, basically. Well, worst case scenario, like I said, is Munoz losing. I mean, Munoz winning, getting a finish. That would be worst case scenario. But like I said, trust me when I say when you balance it out like that, it really does work. And you can even get it to some points. This might actually be one of those cases because Santos is minus 217. It's close. Sometimes you can actually get it to where you're betting on a finish at plus money, but you're also getting over 2.5 at plus money. So it's plus money on both sides of it. Sometimes it actually really does work out that way. So it's like, again, the only way at that point, it's true. The only way to lose money is if the underdog gets a finish, which is pretty rare. It is very rare to happen like that, which is why it's like I said, when you really stack those bets together, some magical things can happen the way the math works out. And this is one of those cases. So we'll see how those odds work out. Like I said, next week, again, we will go through each of those bets next week with those numbers. So you'll get a much better idea of what I'm talking about next week. But for now, That's what I'm doing. So I will be betting on a Santos finish, and I will be betting on the over. And like I said, would it be crazy to have a decision? I mean, listen, like I said, he lost to Julio Arce in a decision. There was a decision in ACA for Santos before that. Munoz, lots of decisions to. I mean, like I said, won a decision for Cholignon, lost to Nate Manis in a decision. Um, there are decisions all over the place there, spotted throughout, I should say. They're not all over the place. They're spotted in there. So plus 133 again, plus money, take a stab at it. Yeah. And like I said, if Santos gets the finish, you get money. Over 2.5, you get money, depending on how the odds work out. And again, as long as Santos wins, because the parlay, it covers betting on the over 2.5. So it all mathematically, as long as the worst case scenario doesn't happen, you're good no matter what. That's the beauty of this. And again, next week will be more obvious of what I'm talking about because you'll be able to actually see the numbers. Hopefully, knock on wood, because again, I could be making terrible bets. That's where this falls apart, of course, is if you make bad choices. But anyway, so of course I just went into huge detail about explaining the system again. So we'll move on, but you get it now. So now we're kind of primed for what I'm going to be doing for the favorites from now on. So now you get it. Now, at least somewhat we're getting it here. So next up, Arlovsky on one side, Dontel Mays on the other. I'm not going to lie, I'm not I'm not really impressed at all by either one of these guys at this point. Like Arlovsky, legend, but currently bit rough. Dontel Mays has never looked good in any of his fights that I've ever seen, and I've seen pretty much all of his UFC ones. So it's rough on both sides. So what does that mean? You probably got to go with the underdog. Even though I will say I was leaning Mays at first. Actually, what did I do here? I think I did go with Mays. See, this is where it does get tough because yeah, this is where it does get tough because the odds, I'll tell you, well, I should be saying the odds beforehand anyway. Plus 105 for Arlovsky, minus 129 for Mays. So this is another situation that you get into sometimes where the odds are very, very, very close. And I mean, yeah, if it is really, really close and you don't really know, again, go with the underdog. And I think I need to just drill that into my head. So maybe we should be going with I don't know. This is one of those tough ones. This is a really, really tough one to have for sure. Just deciding whether I want to go with Mays. Let's go through it. Arlovsky lost the last one, got absolutely destroyed by DeLima. I don't know why I was just sitting there. I should really just be looking through and making my decision with the data, of course. Lost, got finished brutally by DeLima, beat Collier by split decision before that, beat Vandera by split decision before that, beat Felipe, beat Sherman. Like the decision wins are there for sure. Does Mays really have the power to get the finish? Because that's kind of maybe his only chance, but he is also bigger than him. So he should be stronger than Arlovsky. Tough to say. Because then again, on the other side now, Mays lost to Augusto Sakai, which made sense. I mean, I knew he was. I outright said that in the bet leading up to that. I even said there's no way that Dontel Mays should be winning this fight, and he didn't. He lost to Hamdi Abdel Wahab before that, split decision. Beat Parisian, beat Martinez, lost to Nascimento. It is very, very close. So again, because it's close, I think you got to go the underdog. I think you have to. Plus 105 for Arlovsky. I think that's the way I'm going to go with it. It is very close on this one, though. But again, because of that, statistics wise, I think I'm just seeing there's like a whatever this is. I'm not sure what this is. What is that? I actually don't know what that is. Anyway, yeah, I think you got to go with the plus money Arlovsky on this one just because of that. It's very, very close on this one, I will say. That's a tough one. And the over under minus 193 for over 2.5, plus 150 for under 2.5. This is a complete no brainer. Yes, they are in a lot of decisions, but guess what? They're still heavyweights, and there are still a lot of finishes going around for both of them. So, I mean, this is a no brainer. You got to go with the under. I mean, it's heavyweight. There could be a finish at any moment. Plus 150 for a heavyweight for under 2.5. That's a steal. So that's obvious. Go under 2.5, 1 unit on the plus 150 there. Plus 105 underdog for Arlovsky, 1 unit there. And I mean, just think about that for a second. That means that if they're both plus money, which they are, Arlovsky plus 105, under plus 150, the only way that you don't win money is if Mays wins by decision, which is plausible, of course. Of course, that's plausible. But that is the only scenario. That is literally the only scenario where you do not win money. Because if Arlovsky wins, it doesn't matter what happens, you're winning money because it's plus 105. So that covers the bet and it's a little above. So you get like plus 0.05 units. It's still money, you're still above. And on the other side, if it's under, if either one of them gets a finish, you get plus 150. And that covers the other bet and you get half a unit on top of it. That's what I'm saying. Like only one of those has to hit. So when you do that for multiple different fights, you start to get some pretty good things happening, especially when you see both of those things cash in. So what if Arlovsky got a finish here? You would get plus 105 and plus 150. And it happens a lot. It happens a lot more than you'd think, to be honest. I mean, like I was surprised by how much it worked out. But anyway, not trying to hype up the system because that will only lead to failure because I have a tendency to jinx myself quite a bit. So we'll see. But yeah, in terms of statistically what the best odds or the best bets are, that would be it. Arlovsky underdog under 2.5 at plus 150. That's what we're going with. And I see that we're dragging on already 45 minutes deep. But again, this one is kind of like it's the first one. It's the first time that I'm saying this system, so I feel a need to explain why I'm doing what I'm doing along the way. But I think now we've kind of encountered each scenario, so we'll be able to go a little bit faster. So yeah, next fight, John Castaneda. I mentioned him earlier. 19-6 right now. Lost to Daniel Santos. Got absolutely annihilated by him. Beat Miles Johns by finish before that. Eddie Wineland beat him by finish before that. Lost to Wood before that by decision. So he's got a couple of decent wins in there. Nothing crazy though. Muin Gafarov on the other side. And I mean, right away, just based on the name, I'll admit I was really running towards Gafarov on this one. But I gotta say, when you look at his record, it kind of goes downhill quite a bit. He lost to Chad Anheliger on the Contender Series in a split decision. That was in 2021. Hasn't been in the UFC since then, obviously, because he lost on the Contender Series. So that's a tough one. But he did get 2 finishes after that. He looked good. He looked great, honestly, in both of them. And he looked great on the Contender Series, too, if I'm being honest. So honestly, this is kind of another tough one. Which way do you go? Which way do you go? Probably towards the underdog, if I'm being honest. But yeah, this was a tough one. Which way did I go? Because I have my bets up here. I did go with Gafarov. Okay. Because what are the odds at? Where are we here? Oh, they do have the odds. Yes. So Gafarov is the underdog in this one. And I actually totally understand why he is the underdog because, again, he lost in the Contender Series, but it was a split decision. He's really, really skilled, and those skills kind of they kind of work well against Castaneda's style. So I wouldn't really be surprised if Gafarov won. But again, it doesn't really matter. I mean, like, again, you should be going with the underdog on this one because it is that close. There are a lot of questions. Which way could it go? I'm not really sure. So we got to go with the underdog, which is Gafarov plus 105. You can't argue with that. It's plus money. It's close, so you got to go with him. You got to go with the underdog. Gafarov plus 105. They do not have an over under on Bet 99 right now, so I cannot give you any odds for that. But I can tell you, oh, actually, I can't really tell you what I'd be doing because it kind of depends on the odds. And this is why it kind of sucks that, I could do the show later in the week, but it doesn't really work that well. Not just for my schedule, but also the Area 51 schedule as well. Also, it just makes sense because a lot of people make their bets. They want to make their bets a little earlier in the week, so I like having this up now. And I think in the future I will be probably tweeting about my bets later. Like, I mean, like I would probably end up eventually live tweeting it. So just before the fight starts, like maybe like 10 minutes before the fight starts, or while they're doing the walkouts or something, I'll probably tweet out like, "Hey, this is what the pick is. Let's ring the money up. Let's make those bets now, right now, right now, right now." You know what I mean? So I might do that later. Again, this is all up in the air. We're starting a new thing here, so I'm not really sure. Um, but I would say my advice on this one is just go with whatever is the plus money because they have a lot of finishes and they have a lot of decisions, both of them. They're kind of split 50-50 on it. So to me, that just means whatever is the plus money, go with that. Go with that on this one. You don't even need to know what I think about this one. I mean, whatever's plus money, pick that. Next up, the featured prelim, which is interesting because on what what is that? What's the app that I'm thinking about now? Not Verdict MMA. On Verdict, it actually said it was on the main card. It is not on the main card yet. It is the featured prelim so far, so we'll see how that goes. But anyway, Zaleski on one side, last fight 2021, which was one of the worst reffing displays I've ever seen. I mean, it's insane. I don't know if you remember that one, but it was the one on Fight Island where they had this crazy Russian guy and he basically almost let Benoit Saint Denis die pretty much. It was like multiple times they were screaming at him to stop the fight and he was taking points. So it was the weirdest shit I've ever seen. Anybody has ever seen in the UFC. Really, I mean, like this is like, I mean, people talk about Steve Mazzagatti. I kind of even tried to find some clips from Steve Mazzagatti. I didn't really find anything too crazy, to be honest. When I was looking in the research, the shit that this guy did was so much worse than that. It was absolutely insane. So that was his last fight. But anyway, won that against Benoit Saint Denis. Beat Muslim Salikov before that in a split decision, but that was in 2020, guys. Like this is a while ago. I mean, he has not been active at all. Oh, that's weird. I pressed on the wrong thing here. Again, we're working our way through this. Zaleski. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I mean, Zaleski's 36. Everything else is pretty much the same. Abubakar Nurmagomedov on the other side, 33. So he's a little bit younger. Definitely has been more active, though, I will say. And that is kind of where I'm leaning towards the other side here. I'm leaning towards Nurmagomedov. Oh, and again, I'm just not used to the system yet. I should really be saying the odds first. Minus 110 for Nurmagomedov, minus 110 for Zaleski. So this quite literally is 50-50, which means I actually really do have to make a pick here. I actually have to make a pick because they're dead even. So who do I think is going to win? That's who we're going to be picking here. And to be honest, I think it's you have to go with Nurmagomedov. I mean, when it is dead even and one person is named Nurmagomedov, you should probably be going in that direction. Just a safe bet. He also has not been fighting as much, but he beat Gaji Omargadzhiev in the last fight. And to be honest, I actually think Gaji is probably better than Zaleski. It's pretty close, but I mean, that's already a tough opponent. Beat Jared Gooden before that. Meh. Got submitted by David Zawada before that. That's horrible. But that was in 2021 too. So it's like, I don't know. He's 33 now. He was 29 back then. He's obviously gotten a lot better since then. So if it's all being 50-50, I gotta go with Nurmagomedov on this one. He's also 17-3 compared to 23-7. It's pretty even. So yeah, I definitely see why this is dead even. But again, if somebody is named Nurmagomedov, I gotta go with that. Gotta go that way if it's minus 110. If it's even on both sides. The over under. This is do they have it up? They do have it up here. Minus 217 for over 2.5. Plus 166 for under 2.5. What am I gonna say? You gotta go with the plus money. You gotta go with the plus money. I mean, would I confidently bank that there is going to be a decision in this fight? Absolutely not. Zaleski has some finishes in there. He's also been finished. Nurmagomedov, not necessarily a finisher, but he has been finished before. He could get finished again. I mean, like, there's finishes on these records. Minus 217, I don't like that at all. So plus 166, why not? I will say sometimes I do sprinkle in an over 1.5, but again, we don't have those odds set up here. We Bet99 doesn't have that, so we're just going by those. And even earlier in the especially early in the week, you wouldn't even have them on another site anyway. So it's kind of tough to make these bets on a Wednesday instead of on a Friday, but we're doing what we can here. So, and also, like I said, it really does still work out for the most part, usually with this plus money stuff anyway. So plus 166, why not? Under 2.5, go for it. Go for it. Yeah, that was a tougher one to deal with. Main card now, Jamie Malarkey on the one side, and we got Muhammadjan Naimov on the other side. Oh, this was the one that I wasn't sure about a lot more. Yeah, this one was the guy I was definitely, again, by the name, you would kind of think like, oh, Muhammadjan Naimov. He sounds very, very good. Questionable, honestly, on this one. I will say that the one earlier that we talked about, what was that? Gafarov, he looked pretty good, and he has a very real chance of winning this fight. Naimov, I'm honestly, I don't think so. I think that's where the name, the Middle Eastern name or whatever, or Eastern European name too, I guess, that's where this falls apart. That is where this falls off the map completely, where that does not work. You can't get, this isn't a Nurmagomedov situation. You can't go with, oh, it ends in OV, we're going to go in that direction. You can do that quite often, to be honest, but not in this situation. the last couple fights, I mean, he was in Tough Enough 131. That was his last fight. And then he won a split decision in a Tough Enough 129 before that. I mean, really? And then before that, lost in Titan FC to Olivier Murad, lost to Colin Anglin on the Contender Series. I mean, it's not looking good, especially when on the other side, you've got Jamie Malarkey, and Jamie Malarkey as an absolute fucking animal, which we saw in Australia. I mean, like, how much better could you get than, well, I mean, like, that's not what I'm trying to say. He could everybody has room to improve, but when you beat somebody who is 11-0, 11-0 in Australia, which is what he did. He beat Francisco Prado 11-0. You know, like, to me, all around, this is just screaming Jamie Malarkey on this one. So you got to go with him. You got to go with the huge favorite. But like I said, because it's this lopsided, and I didn't say the odds again, idiot. Minus 450 for Malarkey, plus 325 for Naimov. You got to go with Malarkey for sure, but this is again where the parlays come in for sure. And also where it would come in, like where a finish would come in. That's where you'd be betting on Malarkey finish probably, or even Malarkey decision. You could go either way on this. Yeah, that's tough. Basically, I base that on what the over-under is like. So if it's looking like, oh, the under is plus money, I'll go with the under, and then Jamie Malarkey by decision, because that ends up being plus money or lower, lower odds. You balance it out that way, which is what I'm saying. Like next week, we'll have actual real numbers on what I bet on. It just sucks that this is a scenario we're in where I can't make these bets ahead of time. It's just not plausible because like there's no odds for it. I can't do it. But yeah, that the best I can do is to tell you what I will be doing, and you can base it off of that. And like I said, in the future, again, I'll probably be tweeting these things out. Like, okay, this is the bet that I made. This is what we're going with. But yeah, so Malarkey, pretty heavy favorite in that one. Love it, love it. I'm gonna sneeze here probably. Possibly again. Wow. I'm dying. Need to sneeze some water. Ooh, that looks cool. I'm drinking liquid energy. Look at that. Look at how cool that is. Okay. That was terrible. Anyway, next fight, Karine Silva, and on the other side, Ketlin Souza. I gotta say, this is not even. I really don't even think this one's close either, especially when you watch it. I mean, Silva is bigger. She is insanely good. Like, truly, I actually think that she very easily could be a future champion. I'm serious. Like, she is really that good. She is absolutely incredible. Excuse me. Because I mean, Poliana Botelho was looking like the real deal as well. Excuse me, before her last fight. And what did Karine Silva do? She got, I believe, was it the first female Darce, or one of the? It was either the first Darce by a woman in the UFC, or it was maybe the second or the third. But truly, one of the only Darce submissions, and she got it on Poliana Botelho in her last fight in the first round. Crazy. And she submitted somebody again in an insane fashion on the Contender Series before that. Got a heel hook before, arm bar before. She is so good, and she's also good at striking on the feet. Souza, I looked at her. I watched the fights. She won decisions in her last ones in Invicta. Nothing crazy. I mean, nothing insane really on the record at all. Nothing all that crazy. Has a few losses. Lost in 2020, lost in 2019, lost in 2018. Did lose to Ariana Carnelosi though, so I mean that's a UFC alum there. But meh, not really impressed at all, and especially on the tape, Karine Silva just looked like the outright clear pick here. And if you go towards the odds, minus 225 for Karine Silva, that does put us over that minus 200 threshold. So we won't be putting direct money on Silva like that. Instead, like I said, this is actually a perfect opportunity to put money on a Silva finish because she's got so many finishes and Souza has been finished before. This is the perfect opportunity to put money on the Silva finish. And there are no odds once again on the over under. I would imagine that the odds are probably going to be on the under, I would imagine. So we're probably going to be going the over to balance it out because then again, like listen, like this is how the setup ends up working is you've got probably pretty dead even money on a Silva finish. So like minus 110, minus 120. You could even have below that. You might even have plus money because you could even go for a submission. That's plus money probably. And then you've got plus money on the over. So whatever really, you've got a lot of chances to get plus money bets cashing in. That's how it works. So it works really well. I'm serious. But anyway, we don't have the odds, so we can't really predict what we're going to be doing there. But I would imagine that's what it's going to be looking like. But yes, we will be putting Karine Silva in the parlays. Moving on. Then we got, who do we have? Tim Elliott, Victor Altamirano. I gotta say, this one was a little tougher. Because I see why people would be picking Tim Elliott, and he is I wouldn't say significant favorite, but he is a favorite. Minus 180 for Tim Elliott. Altamirano plus 145. To be honest, I actually think this is a lot more even than people think, which is why I will actually be going with the underdog on this one. You got to go with the plus money on this. And I'll tell you why. He only won his last fight because he was cheating like an absolute fucking animal. I've never seen anybody cheat as much as Elliott did. I've literally never seen anything like it. He was grabbing onto the cage. He landed, I mean, you can't call them illegal knees, but when I say it was as close to being an illegal knee as it literally could be, I'm dead serious because they did the replay. He was literally this far off the canvas when Elliott landed the knee, which means that he was throwing it clearly when he was grounded. So, and he did that 3 or 4 times. So it's kind of like that's already shit. I mean, blatantly grabbed his glove multiple times. They replayed it on camera. No points taken away. They replayed it in between rounds. He was clearly grabbing the glove and punching him in the face. It was like, what is going on? This is so much cheating. It's unbelievable. So that is literally the only reason he won that last fight. And it was also probably one of the best performances I have ever seen by Tim Elliott, in addition to that cheating. So it's like, not only did he have a pretty ridiculous night, but he also cheated blatantly multiple times. And on the other side, Altamirano is pretty legit. I mean, he beat Vinicius Salvador in the last one. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot because Salvador is making his debut, but that was pretty impressive to watch. Destroyed Daniel Lacerda before that. Split decision against Carlos Hernandez before that he lost. It was close. Candelario split decision. He's definitely got a pretty good chance. And he's also a lot younger than Tim Elliott. So it's close. It could go either way, which means plus money, you got to go with Altamirano plus 145. I'm not saying it's the clear pick to make. I'm just saying that in terms of the odds, you got to go Altamirano plus 145. And he's 12-2. He's 12-2, which is pretty solid against the 18-12 Tim Elliott, who is also, by the way, 36. So you tell me. I'm willing to take a chance on the much younger, well, slightly younger, let's say, and non-cheater Altamirano on this one. Plus 145, why not? And when you go to the over/under here, this is a bit of a tough one, I will say. I mean, the over 2.5 minus 275 for over 2.5. That's brutal. Plus 210 for the under 2.5. Yeah, that's definitely a tough one because they don't really have too many finishes. I mean, Royval finished Elliott, Figueiredo finished Elliott. Those are submission guys. I don't really think Altamirano is going to be able to do that. But it's possible. But Elliott could maybe get a finish. I guess. So, I mean, yeah, plus 210. Like, you see what I mean? Like, plus 210, and like Elliott could submit him in the second round or something like that. You never know. So, plus 210 and plus 145, they're both plus money like that. You win one of them, you win a lot of money. So, you got to go with the under on this one, especially since it's minus 275. Again, this is a lot tougher when we don't have the other odds to work with to balance this out. But even so, it's still a decent start with plus 145 Altamirano and plus 210 for under 2.5. Again, if either one of those cashes in, we get not just a little bit of money, you're actually up at least half a unit on either side, no matter what happens. So, as long as you win one of them, of course. So, it's looking good. I don't know. That's a tough one, though. Then we got Jim Miller and Jared Gordon. I gotta say, this is actually another tough one. And it is very, very close. So again, you gotta go with the underdog. You know what I'm gonna be saying from now on for every single show. You gotta go with the underdog. Plus 150 for Jim Miller right now. Minus 186 for Jared Gordon. That makes Miller a pretty clear underdog in this one. And but listen, he was doing really well against Alexander Hernandez. Like, it was a 29-28, but it was close. Like, a 29-28 is close in itself. I mean, that's literally one round, so it's close. But Jim Miller was doing some real damage, and he does not slow down for the whole 3 rounds. And I really don't think Gordon's going to be able to finish him. I would be pretty surprised, because when was the last time Jim Miller was finished? Jim Miller has not been finished since 2018, and that was Charles Oliveira. So, do I think Jared Gordon is going to get a finish? No, I do not. So already that lends me to believe that Miller is going to be probably winning the 3rd round, because he is way better as the fight goes on. And Jared Gordon, I don't think he can keep him off of him for that long. Plus, I think Jim Miller is actually bigger than Gordon, I would say, size-wise. So I think he's got an advantage there too. I think it's going to be close. I don't think anybody's going to get blown out. I just think it's going to be a close fight, which means why not go with the underdog? So yeah, got to go with Miller plus 150. And the over/under is where it gets tough. Minus 158 for over 2.5, plus 122 for under 2.5. Yeah, that's a lot of tough one, because they both have a lot of decisions. A lot of decisions. Let's see here, Gordon. Oh, that's so weird. Oh, never mind. I was gonna say the last person that finished both of them was Charles Oliveira, but Grant Dawson was actually the last person to finish uh, Jared Gordon. Because obviously we won't count the Bobby Green one. That's just swept under the rug. We won't even pay attention to that because that was in the first round. Not a whole lot had really happened before that. Gordon was actually doing kind of well before that too, but it was so close. And then, clash of heads ends it in the first round. So I wouldn't even really, I would just completely ignore that fight. But yeah, it was finished by Grant Dawson, submitted by Grant Dawson. Miller is good on the ground. Maybe he could get a submission. That's a tough one. I do think it's probably going to be a decision. Plus money for under 2.5, though. Man, that's a tough one. This is a tough one. See, this is where it gets tough. You still got to go with Miller for sure. Plus money. He is more likely to win a decision, though. Hmm. How to split this up? Hmm. I think maybe going the over on this one, because if you're trying to balance it out, Gordon will never get a fin. I don't think there's any chance that he's going to get a finish, which means that if Gordon wins, it should be a decision, which means minus 158. You would probably cash in. If Miller wins, it could be under, it could be over, but you'd be getting the plus 150. I like that. Mm, yeah, I think you got to go with the over on this one. Over 2.5 minus 158. That is what I will be doing. Or at least as of now, that's what I'm doing. But again, like I might not be making some of these bets because there might be better ones later. But if you set it up exactly like I'm saying, it should still be pretty close. Where if you, at least if you don't make money, it's going to be down like 2, maybe 3 units, which isn't much of anything at all. Like that's fine. Because that seems to be the worst case. Worst case is like minus. It seems to be like minus 10 units. Seems to be like worst case, and that's if my absolute number one pick cannot lose person ends up losing. That's basically what happens. But as long as that person wins, it seems like worst case is like 3 units down, maybe 4 units down, something like that. And best case, I mean, like even on a half decent card, you should be up 3, 4, 5 units. I've even been up 12 units now. That was my best one so far. So yeah, in the 3 weeks that I've been doing this. Anyway, so yeah, that's what I'll be doing on this one. I'll be going with the over on that. 2 fights left. We've got Alex Caceres, Daniel Pineda. To be honest, I don't even think this one is close at all, especially if you watch the tape. But even if you don't watch the tape, I still don't even think it's close. I mean, Caceres on one side, he's got so many finishes. I mean, he really is. People don't really talk about him that much, but he really is pretty good. He is something special. I mean, he knocked out Julian Erosa in 3 minutes in his last fight, and I actually thought Erosa was going to win that. I'm not maybe not convincingly, but I thought he was a pretty clear choice in that one, and he got absolutely slept. One of the craziest, yeah, actually one of the worst knockouts I saw last year. It was like, oh shit, like he did not, when he stood up, he could not stand up for a while. And when he did stand back up, he was falling over trying to get back to the stool. It was like, oh shit. Like it was that kind of knockout. And that was Alex Caceres. On the other side, Daniel Pineda is kind of struggling. Kind of struggling. I mean, he's never really done that well, really. I mean, did beat Tucker Lutz in his last one, which is like okay, and he was kind of losing to be fair, before he ended up winning that one. He wasn't really looking that good. And when you're comparing Tucker Lutz to Alex Caceres, there's literally no comparison at all. And before that, I mean, this guy's got the weirdest record. If you look at this, it's Tucker Lutz, cancellation, Jamal Emmers. Below that, Davy Ramos, draw in grappling. Grant Dawson, draw. Then you got a no contest against Feely. Cub Swanson, loss. Herbert Burns, win. And then you got 2 no contests in a row. Jeremy Kennedy, Movlid Kaibulaev, and PFL. So this guy's got 3 no contests, 2 draws, a loss, a couple cancellations, and a couple wins. I mean, this guy's record is literally all over the place. And you can't trust that. But I mean, like, 2020, he got knocked out by Cub Swanson in the second round. If you're getting knocked out by Cub Swanson in 2020, I mean, listen, I know Cub Swanson is still, he's still good. But 2020, I mean, like, that's not prime Cub Swanson, And then you've got Alex Caceres, who knocked out Julian Erosa in the first round in his last fight. And he's a finisher, like the real deal kind of finisher. I just think Caceres is a pretty obvious pick for this one. So minus 175, that's still below that minus 200 threshold. I'm going Caceres. And very interesting. The odds are set at 1.5 on this one. So yeah, definitely going Caceres minus 175. Might even throw him in a couple of parlays, to be honest, because I'm that confident in him. But yeah, minus 186 for over 1.5, plus 142 for under 1.5. That's tough. That is a tough betting line, because normally when I bet on Betway, they have all of them all the time. So not all the time, later in the week, they have over 2.5, over 1.5. They have both of them. I flip between the two depending on what looks better. So this is a tough one, I would say. There's a lot of first round finishes for Alex Caceres. So why not? Why not go plus money on this one too? Plus 142 for under 1.5. And remember, under 1.5 also means that you could get a finish in the start of the second round. You could, if it's in the first 2.5 minutes, that's still under 1.5. So he could get a second round sub at the start of the second round. He could get a knockout. He could, whatever, plus 142. He's got a lot of first round finishes. Why not? Why not give him that chance? Plus 142. We'll go for it. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, like I said, this is kind of a weird. This is just kind of a weird time in the week to be making bets like this. Really, more so, I would say the huge part to pay attention to for sure is the money line bets. So the actual pick, not the over unders necessarily, but the actual pick. That is what you want to be paying attention to for sure right now, because those actually, even some of them, it's better to make the bets now, because the bets will only get more. The lines will get more out of control, which you don't want, except for the underdogs. Always make the underdog bets as close to the fight as you can, because those are always going to be because people only bet on favorites usually. That's what a lot of people do, which inflates the favorite and drops that underdog down even farther, which means you're actually getting more money for the underdog picks later in the week, which is why the system does work fairly well, because I bet on Fridays or whatever day it is. Like if the card's on Thursday, I'll bet Wednesday, day before. Because you get the best odds for it. That's one of the reasons why this does tend to work so well. But anyway, I'm going Caceres, and I'm going under 1.5. Now we've got the main event. Kai Kara France, Amir Albazi. I gotta be honest, I'm a little surprised that the odds are dead even right now. They are quite literally dead even, -110, -110, both sides. And I'm actually a little bit surprised because, I mean, uh, going into it too, I was like, "Oh, I think Albazi could win that. Why not? Why couldn't Albazi win?" But then when I'm kinda thinking about it a little bit more, and when I watched the tape, I was like, I think Kai Kara France is kind of a steal on this one. I think he's the pretty obvious pick, and I'm not really sure why they're going against him here because, like, listen what he's done recently. Lost to Brandon Moreno in the 3rd round. Like, okay, that's a championship fight. Which, by the way, really just proves, like, hey, he's fighting for the fucking interim championship against Moreno, who beat Figueiredo now. Like, he is the true champion, Brandon Moreno. And he lost to him in the 3rd round. And by the way, he was doing pretty well before that. He did really well on the feet, uh, really well on the ground, too. I mean, he shut down those takedowns easily, did really, really well. He was doing really well in that fight against the champ. And before that, he beat Askar Askarov. And I got to say, I still I'm still not sure. I'm still not fully convinced if he won that fight or not, if I'm being honest. I kind of thought Askar deserved the win on that one. But I will say, who is the better wrestler between Askar Askarov and Amir Albazi? I literally don't. I like, if you think that there's even a comparison between the two, I don't even think you've been watching. I don't think you've been paying attention to these fights at all because, like, Askar Askarov is very clearly the best wrestler in the division, and it's like not even close. Like, he is clearly the best wrestler. And Kai Kara France was able to shut down those takedowns up until the 3rd round. Then he started to struggle a little bit more, but he shut down Askarov's takedowns up until that 3rd round. So, if he can do that until the 3rd round, and this, by the way, was in 2022, so it's actually over a year ago. This was actually a year and 3 months ago that he did that Askarov fight, and he got better with his takedown defense after that. We saw it in the Moreno fight. So I just don't really see how Albazi wins this, especially this is a 5-round fight. I don't really see where this is coming in unless he can Albazi can kind of get takedowns later in the fight. But to be honest, I don't know if he's going to last that long. I really don't, because his striking is decent. It's good. Albazi's striking is decent, but Kai Kara France's striking is like way up there, like way, way up there, to the point where I actually do think that Kai Kara France should be able to get a finish here. And it's because it's 5 rounds. If this was a 3-round fight, I'd be going Kai Kara France all day, by decision for sure. And I wouldn't even really be questioning it too much. But because of this, because it's 5 rounds, I actually do think Kai Kara France finish. That's I think kind of what we're gravitating towards. Kai Kara France for sure -110 is the right pick for sure. Like, I think given everything, you have to go with Kai Kara France at -110. And I didn't even say what was on the other side. So compare that, the championship experience, beat Askar Askarov, who most people thought was like the number 2 contender. Like, keep that in mind. He beat him technically. Um, and on Albazi's side, he's finished Alessandro Costa in the 3rd round. Who the hell is that? Francisco Figueiredo, so the less good Figueiredo, destroyed him in the 1st round, but I mean, he's not even good. Zhalgas Zhumagulov in a decision. And, then you're getting back to 2020. Then it's Malcolm Gordon, Ryan Curtis before that, and Brave. So he's never really actually fought anybody in the UFC that's the real deal. Like, truly, his best competition out of those, to me, is actually Zhao Magulov. I actually think he's probably the best guy on that list, which is saying quite a bit because he is probably going to get cut soon. So, like we're comparing somebody who literally just fought for an interim belt to somebody who has never fought anybody even sniffing the top 15, really, if we're being real. Because, like, I mean, Figueiredo, that was his technical, like, top 15 win, and, like, he's not good. Like, I don't know. I just don't see it. So, again, it's like, this is a pretty clear choice, minus 110 for Kai Car France. Where it gets interesting, of course, is that over-under, but like I said, there's a lot of finishes on both sides. I mean, what if I'm completely way off about the takedown defense and Kai Car France gets submitted? What if he gets submitted? That's still a finish. That's still under. And I could maybe see that. I mean, Albazi is pretty good on the ground. Maybe he's just way, way better than we think. I don't think he is, but he might be. So that would be the under. And I really do think that he's live for a KO as well. Kai Car France. I really do think he's very more than capable of getting a KO throughout the 5 rounds. I really, really do think that, especially as it goes longer, because Albazi will struggle more and more to get those takedowns. He's going to start struggling, get a little more tired, and then gives Kai Car France a better opening, or even the opposite. Maybe Kai Car France can't stop those takedowns anymore in the 4th or 5th rounds, and then he gets a submission there. So to me, the under is definitely the way to go on this one. Right now, it is at 3.5, I will say, because I'm looking at Bet99. That's what we're at right now. But could I see that being stretched up to the 4.5 later? Yeah, I could see that. I could very much see that. But again, 3.5 rounds, that is halfway through the 4th round. So will there be a finish before the end of the 4th? I could see that. I could see that. So plus 128, I'm down. I'm down to do that. And that is it. That is the entire card. That is what we will be doing from now on, but I will be doing it a lot faster in the weeks to come. Again, this one was more so just to explain the reasoning behind what I did with everything. And also for me, just to kind of go through what this is actually going to be like from now on, going through these cards like this. It's just a learning process, of course. Um, but yeah. Oh, yeah. So we'll go with the parlays, of course, too. So where does that bring us on the parlays? Where does that bring us on the parlays? Well, we'll go through that. I mean, Santos. Santos, I think he's gonna win for sure, I would say. So we got Santos, Malarkey, Carine Silva, and Caceres. That's 4, actually. There you go. So that's really the 4 that I would probably be putting together. Because there's really not too many over that minus 200 threshold right now. So there's no real reason to, yeah. Because like when we get to pay-per-views, that's where it got a little more interesting, because there's a lot more huge favorites on those cards. Excuse me. So then you can string a lot more of these together. But the ones that what you end up with when you do a system like this is you end up seeing like, which ones am I really, really, really sure about? So, I mean, even though Elliott is at minus 175 and Gordon's at minus 186, which are great odds for a parlay, I don't like them as much. I don't consider them as big of a favorite. I don't consider them the true standout favorite. So when you do a system like this, instead, you kind of see which ones you're way more confident about, because which matchups are you putting money on the dog? If you're putting money on the dog, then you're clearly not insanely sure that the favorite's going to win, obviously. So it is a very interesting, it is definitely an interesting system that I've started to do for sure. But yeah, so that does leave us, like I said, with, we'll go through that again. Daniel Santos minus 217. Malarkey minus 450. Silva, Karine Silva minus 225. That's pick 3. And closing it out with Alex Caceres. So that's the 4-way parlay. What I've been doing is I've been doing a couple of 3 legs and then a 4 leg. Or sometimes what I've been doing, if there's enough picks, I've been doing a few 3 legs, a couple of 4 legs, and then I'll do one with all the ones that I really like a 5 or 6 leg parlay, which I have cashed in as well. I mean, I've cashed in 10, 15 leg parlays before. It happens. But yeah. That's how this system works though. So you go with a 3 and a 4. That's what I like to do. So my 4 is the 4 that I just said. The 3, who would I cut out of that? Well, let's see. Silva, I think, is so good. Malarkey, I mean, I think Malarkey's got to stay. I think Daniel Santos has got to stay. Who do we go? Caceres. Who do we get out of here? Do we get Caceres out of there? Caceres or Silva, really? That's kind of who I'm thinking. Yeah, you got to cut Caceres out of there. That's the 3rd leg. So the 3 legs would then be, if you cut Caceres out, that's Malarkey, Karine Silva, and Daniel Santos. That's the 3 leg. The 4 leg is you add on Caceres. And sometimes I switch them out too. So like sometimes I'll switch it between, like, I would take Silva out of one of them and throw in somebody like Maxim Grishin or something on there as well. So, you can mix and match with the parlays depending on who you were, I guess, most convinced by throughout my entire spiel, I guess. But yeah, essentially that's what we're doing with the parlays, the 3 leg and the 4 leg. There you go. And the last thing, this was the surprise that I was talking about, is what I've been doing is I've been doing what I call the sniper pick. And that is where I put 6, 8 units, somewhere around there, 6 or 8 units on one person to win. It's basically like pushing it all in on one guy. And I know it sounds crazy and ill-advised, and maybe sometimes it is. But let me tell you these stats, and then you can judge for yourself. I mean, so far, within those, actually, okay, well, we'll ignore the first week that I did that because I made some mistakes there. In the last, so starting on, this would be not last week, not the week before, but I think it was the week before that. So it starts with Aries FC, Aries number 15, Ibrahim Mane. That was my first sniper pick parlay in this stretch. Since then, I have won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It goes from basically, what's 22? 22 minus 9, essentially. So 13. I have only lost 1, and I got my money back on one of them because it was a push for. Oh yeah, that's right. The fight didn't happen, so they canceled that one. So I got my money back on that one, but I did lose 1. That's it though. So out of 13, I lost 1. And it was a push on another one. So technically I've won 11 out of 13. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. So you can imagine when you get that many right, you do end up making money because yeah, yeah, just the way the math works out. Trust me on that. Because, some of them are minus 700, minus 800, minus 500, whatever. But if you're betting 8 units on it and without a doubt this person's going to win, like there's no way, it ends up working out. And some of them are minus 250. There's a minus 275 in there as well. Kamakubo, I bet on in Road to UFC, which, by the way, that was a rough one. I barely got that, barely skinned out with that one. But I bet 6 units on that at minus 275. So I was up 2 units because of that. Well, 2.18 units. I was up 2.18 units because of that one. Like, you just have to be extremely, 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 extreme, like so confident that it's like there is no way that this person is going to lose. Jailton Almeida was another one I had on there. I mean, come on, was Jailton Almeida going to lose that? There's no fucking way he was going to lose that fight. Come on. I had Iavloyev. That was a bit of a rough ride. Who else did I have? Oh yeah, Silva last week. Or no, was it Silva? What's her name? The incredible female fighter that got the knockout last week. Why am I forgetting her name? She's so funny too. I like her. I even followed her on Instagram after that. Man, what was her name? Oh, actually, I could just look it up here. It was Silva. I don't have her name. I don't have her first name, but it was Silva. Oh, that would be funny if I did 2 Silvas in a row. I might. But yeah, so what I'm trying to figure out now is who is that sniper pick this week? And obviously it's going to be somebody in that parlay. So really it comes down to, do I think it's Santos? Do I think it's Malarkey? Do I think it's Karine Silva? Do I even think it's Caceres? Do I want to make this pick right now? Do I really want to pick my sniper pick parlay right now? Well, since I got time, because I don't think my food's here yet, I might as well. I might as well make my sniper pick. So let's go through. It'll only take a couple minutes anyway. I think it might honestly be Jamie Malarkey because he's so good, and he beat Francisco Prado, who was undefeated. Naimov lost in the Contender Series. The odds are even pretty good, minus 450. 6 units. You still get a unit up. Daniel Santos is so good, though. He's so good. Let's see. I'm looking at Tapology, trying to match. Like, do I think? Like how is Daniel Santos looking on this? He's so good, though. He's so good. And Karine Silva. I won't go with Silva. I will say that. That Silva's out on that one. Just because women's MMA is so notoriously difficult. I wouldn't even say, well, it is difficult to predict, actually. Definitely more so. But especially when somebody's making their debut. I don't know. No, I still think Silva's going to pretty easily win. Fuck me. See, this is where the sniper pick comes. Like, that's why this is so hard, because you have to be 100% certain that somebody is going to win, or else it kind of doesn't really work because you have to win. But like I said, when it works, it works. Fuck me. Well, what have we got on the odds here? Minus 217 for Santos. Minus 450 for Malarkey. Because it doesn't work just picking the biggest favorite, because you can get burned pretty bad on that. I mean, just look at what happened with Shevchenko and Nunes last year. Like, yikes, you don't want to bet on those every single time. You want to be so sure that there is absolutely no way this person's going to lose. And I can tell you right now, Nunes will not be my pick next week. She is not going to be my sniper pick for that pay-per-view. I can tell you that. No way in hell am I picking her. But yeah, Karine Silva, minus 225. Caceres looks really, really good. Nah, Pineda. there's still that slight, just that slight chance, because for this, you have to think isn't even that slight chance. That's how confident you have to be to make the sniper pick here. Man, who's the sniper? Who sniper's going to snipe? Who is it? Who is it? Am I going Santos? Am I going Santos on this one? Man. Who did Santos just beat, though? Sholin Yan? He beat Sholin Yan, but he got hit quite a bit. Lost to Tony Gravely. See, you can see. Well, and this is why I would normally be making the sniper pick beforehand. And I normally would, but again, I got so distracted yesterday with how busy I was. It was like, I just don't have, I couldn't do it. I think I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to do it. Daniel Santos. Daniel Santos is my sniper pick this week. Minus 217. That's one hell of a sniper pick, too. Normally, I really do stick to minus 3, 4, 500. But to be honest, there's only one on this card that's that much of a favorite, and it's Malarkey. So I don't know, like split decision to Michael Johnson, and he's going. I don't know, but the odds just seem better too, because we need to make some profit here. You know? Yeah, I got to go with Santos. I'm so confident that he's going to win this because he's just so good, and his pressure is so much that I just don't think Munoz can handle it. I really don't. So yeah, Santos minus 217. But Malarkey at minus 450. Fuck. Shit. Why do I feel like whatever I'm going to pick, I'm going to regret it? I'm going to regret it so much. Because normally, again, I don't do this on camera, so I'm usually so confident in what I pick. I'm like, oh, there's no fucking way this guy's going to lose. But now that I'm on camera, it's like, oh man, I don't want to be wrong on camera now that I'm doing this for the first time. Oh, fuck it. No, I'm doing Santos. Daniel Santos, my sniper pick, minus 217. We got 6 units on him. And remember, oh yeah, by the way, I should say, what I do for the parlays is I put 1 unit on the top parlay, so the 3-leg parlay, and I put half a unit on the other parlay, the 4-leg parlay. That's how I go with that one. And then for the sniper pick, yes, I usually do 6 or 8 units, depending on how many, like what the actual betting line is like. Because he's actually minus 217, I think I'll actually do minus 5 units. I will do 5 units because you would end up with just over 2 units back when you win the sniper pick on this one. Because if you did 6, then it would be almost 3 units, and you don't want to go 7 units. That's, it just the way the math works out. You'd like nicer numbers, and why risk an extra unit for not even an extra unit back? 5 units seems to be the perfect one for this. So yeah, I think I'll go with 5 on this one, which I'll actually even type into I have an Excel sheet here specifically meant for this, which is how I know I've been, how I've been keeping track of, obviously, the bets the last few weeks. So yeah, I'll be going with Santos for 5 units. I think that's the sniper pick for the week. And I haven't made my sniper pick for KSW, so I can't tease that. But I will be betting on KSW. I'll be betting on, I'm sure there's another card that's coming up this week. Is PFL this week? Let me see. Or is that next week? PFL is next week. So great week next week for that. I mean, PFL pay-per-view as well. Then next week after that, it's another PFL card and another, of course, I would assume there's a UFC card. I'm pretty sure. So there's a lot of betting going on. Wow. You love it. You gotta love it. You gotta love the bets. Whoops, almost dropped my phone. But yeah, that's it. And here I said I wasn't going to do 2 hours, but I think again, because it's the first one and I was just kind of going through why I'm doing certain things and all of that, I think it was just longer because of that. But now that we've got all that done, that is it. I won't have to explain over and over like this is why we're doing what we're doing. I mean, I might if there's a couple of people in the chat that want to know, and I'll explain it a little bit. But eventually, yeah, I'll just post a video explaining it if it keeps working. So yeah, anyway, so next week we'll be back Wednesday with the same amazing setup. Look at how great. I mean, like I actually like that it disappears, to be honest. I know people are going to say, "Oh, your hat is disappearing because it's green." To be honest, I actually kind of like it. It makes me look like I'm in the Illuminati or something like that, where my head is like see-through or like my head is a hologram or something. It looks really cool. Like I'm what's that guy? The Vision, you know? I am the Vision. Yes. I love it. I'm going to write that one down. But anyway, so yeah, next week we got today's bets to recap. We'll see how those numbers work out. I will do a full recap of, just the units, how many units were up. Did that bet cash in? Did that bet cash in? That's what we'll be doing next week, which should take probably like I want to say probably half an hour or so to just recap a little bit, maybe 20 minutes. And then it would be probably, depending on how long the card is, this was a bit of a longer card too. It'll be about maybe 45 minutes, maybe an hour for the bets next week, maybe even less, to be honest. I mean, it really didn't take that, and especially since I should be more prepared next week too. I'll have all my bets actually ready next week to present because I didn't necessarily have that today. I did for the most part, but yeah, definitely took a while for a couple of those picks, especially the parlays and all that. But anyway, that is it for me. I'm loving this new format, to be honest. I think this is going to go a lot better. And it's more so about the betting, which is what we want to focus on anyway. This is a betting show. I mean, that's a whole betting thing. That's the whole point of this. So yeah. And like I said, I'll throw in some thoughts here and there about the fights, but no recap. Like I don't think I'll be typing anything out anymore ever again while I watch these fights because I enjoyed so much. I should really since I was gone for a few weeks, I'll even just say like, yeah, I didn't have to type anything out anymore after the fights or during the fights, I should say. So I was having way more fun watching the fights. I was having a great time watching, and I just don't want to go back to that. And I don't think it's necessary either, especially since we're focusing on the betting. All we need to know how did those bets work out? How did the numbers work out? Where were the mistakes? And I will point those out too. I'll say, you know what? This was a bad mistake. I should not have made that bet. Should have made this bet instead. We can go back and forth on that as well. That's more so what we're going to be talking about than the fight itself. So yeah, I like it. I think this is going to go a lot better. I think anyway, even though there was nobody watching today, and I'll probably have to explain this if anybody comes back next week or the week after. We'll see. Whatever. We're rolling with it. We're doing what we're doing, and yeah, I think this is going to be better. I think this is going to be better. Oh, and I haven't seen The Ultimate Fighter yet. I have not seen it yet. I will be watching it. Essentially, I'm going to be watching it every Wednesday night. So I won't have any commentary about The Ultimate Fighter, sadly, because I'll be watching it just a little bit too late. Maybe I'll tweet about it. I don't know, occasionally. We'll see. We're just playing it by ear at this point. But anyway, now for real, this is it. This is the end. We've come to the end. And next week, like I said, yes, we will recap these bets. And then we'll be talking about the pay-per-view in Vancouver itself, my home, the home of the great one, me. Yeah, can't wait. I mean, I'm on the one hand, upset that I couldn't go see. Obviously, I want to go watch any UFC event, but I'm really not in a place to watch it right now. But also, way too expensive, especially for the card that we're getting. I mean, holy shit, were we robbed in terms of the pay per view? But we'll discuss that more next time. That is a conversation for next week that I guarantee you we will have next week. I will see you then. Thanks for watching. See you next time.